All right, let's get into it.
Franklin. Now join me in giving a Sunday best welcome to recording artist Keke Wyatt.
I'm trying out like the Terrell thing where I have some coffee with this. So, I know people hate when I get into it, but there's really cool stuff. When you use nasality, you have to droop your soft palate because otherwise you're blocking the nasal passages. So you have to lift your soft palate when you're doing this. Or sorry, you have to lower your soft palate when you use nasality. But when she goes into mix, she then gradually lifts up her soft palate. That's nasal, palate down. Lifted. There's no such thing as a bad sound, only cause and effect. This is a sound. So many people who are just starting out, they hate this sound. They try to get rid of this sound. They try to find how to get rid of this sound, and it's not smart. This is what a lot of people would call mixed voice. So people get in all sorts of fights on the internet about whether or not something's falsetto, mixed voice, or whatever. And the issue that ends up happening is no one ever qualifies those statements. No one ever describes what's actually physically happening. And then we just get into arguments over calling a subjective sound a thing by a name. So it's a really stupid argument. So let's qualify what these two terms mean. Okay? I don't care if you change the definition, but just so you understand what I'm talking about, we're going to describe what actually happens. Falsetto. Boom. No adduction of the folds, no contact, but the edges of the folds are vibrating to create sound. On the far left here, I'm going to move this a little bit so you can see. Or sorry, on the far right, you see how there's static all the way up? That's all air leaking. All of that static looking stuff is just air leaking. So that's what falsetto looks like if we graph it. Mixed voice doesn't look like that. Mixed voice looks like this. If we're calling and we're defining mixed voice as some vocal fold adduction, but not all, right? We do this. Very little static. And we can add more or less. The difficulty of discerning what mixed voice is when people talk about it is because at what point are you going to call it mixed? Is it when there's any vocal adduction, right? Where it sounds like falsetto, but like a little bit is touching. And this is the problem with these terms and why they're inadequate when we're really getting into it. But this is mixed voice, and this is a sound that so many people throw away because it's not powerful, right? And that's nonsense. If the note isn't powerful, that's your fault. If you can't make a quiet note powerful, that's on you. Keke Wyatt makes it powerful. Take care of you. That's powerful. I want to point out, these runs have a destination. They're part of a phrase, right? There's the expectation that this is going to go somewhere. Right? There's a journey there. It's really, really, really hard to make just scale runs very compelling without hitting like a chord tone, which is just a note of the chord that you are on while you're singing on it, right? And you can also add meter. These sorts of runs are very hard to make interesting in isolation. So she puts it in context. God will take care of you. So a couple of things just on the technique bits. The sliding that she's doing is so cool. Nothing you ask will be. Right? That be. Oh, that's so good. This is another thing that there's a lot of different ways to sing, right? Going back to there's no wrong sound, there's only cause and effect. I love this. This is something that if you want to make a high note like a bit more epic, or like even if you're just learning and you want to make your life a little easier, this slide is a really cool way to have like some tension and release, right? I'm right there with you. This look right here, that's where I'm at. Right here. Yes. That's where I'm at. The only singers I hear that go that far consistently, who deliver that much generosity, is gospel. Yes, I've heard it in other places, but it's like every gospel performance that I've seen so far, and I've not seen a lot of them, admittedly. Everyone goes to the max. They turn it up to 11. It's crazy. I guess I have to talk about technique a little bit to justify my existence. I guess I would summarize with maybe one idea here. People oftentimes will try to sound like another person, or they want to classify their voice into baritone, tenor, soprano, take your pick. Those classifications are, first of all, bunk. The only utility classifications have is in a casting call for mostly classical and some theater, and maybe, I guess, for some choirs, right? You can't tell me she didn't comfortably hit soprano notes, or that she didn't comfortably hit mezzo-soprano notes. She's there. And this is why voice classifications are bunk. Why are you going to limit yourself for no reason? The limit that you should have on yourself, and you shouldn't push, is the size of your voice. She has a massive sound. She's a massive sound, but you can tell she's not trying for that. This is sound. There's a whole wall of sound coming out of her mouth. And it's brilliant. You can't create that lushness. You can't pick your adjective for warmth or rich, insert here. You can't create that. It doesn't mean higher voices are invalid, right? Beyonce sounds beautiful, right? There are a lot of people, Kathleen Battle sounds beautiful. Insert your soubrette or whatever. As I say, classifications are useless, and I just contradict myself. But this stuff, you can't fake it. You can't manipulate your voice to do this. And the trade-off that usually happens when someone has a big voice, because those folds are literally larger, right? Literally larger folds. That's how we get the sound. Well, you can't move, right? Right? If you're in a Formula One race, you're not going to bring an 18-wheeler and think that you're going to turn on a dime, right? Unless you're totally amazing, awesome, and then your 18-wheeler can compete. She has a massive voice, but her technique is ludicrous. The breath, the tone, the options, how comfortably she's belting, how comfortable she sings with the thyroid tilt, which is the more classical approach, how she gets into mixed voice, how she uses nasality, like she's just using everything. And it's way harder to do it when you have a voice this big. It's way harder, because all of this stuff that requires all this movement, you got bigger things to work with. It ain't easy to move all this stuff around so quick. And she does it. And it's masterful. Not to mention, like, it's like, who cares about technique when this is the performance? Like, I'm right. Like, again, I just want to, I don't know who these people are, but I relate. The eyebrow lift, like, what? And her like, huh? Right there with them. Holy crud.